I'm pressing record. Okay, record and the backup recording. Does it say on your Zoom that, okay, yes, I got it. Okay, great.
I see where it says record.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, I like to keep the intros really informal, so we're just sort of slide into it. So 3, 2, 1. Joining me now to discuss a fear of deep water is a former colleague, Carter McCall. We work together at Cheddar. Carter, how's it going?
Good. I am uneasy to talk about something I'm uneasy about, but I'm happy to do it.
Well, I'm super appreciative because we also have with us today Mark Harlan, who's how did you put it? A results-based hypnotist?
Results hypnotist.
Yeah. So yeah, Mark's going to help us kind of work through Carter's issues a little bit and also kind of introduce the audience to what a results-based hypnotist may be able to do for them, which is encouraging. Yeah, so thank you both. Carter, I want to start with, can you describe or kind of set the table related to your fears? Like, when did you know? How has it affected you?
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking today about, where my fear stemmed from. Like I guess I would describe it as this general uneasiness when I'm around like a large body of water.
Not even in it. You're
yeah, just around it. Yeah, I could be standing on the shore. I could be in it. I could be swimming in it. But yeah, just generally feeling like the massiveness, I guess, of the body of water, whether it's like a lake or like the ocean. And I was thinking about it today because I never really like dove that deep into why I felt uneasy about it. And I didn't even realize I felt uneasy about it until I started dating my girlfriend, who grew up on a very, very large lake in upstate New York. And one of the first visits I made up there, she was like, "Let's walk down to the lake and let's check it out." And I was very excited. And we were walking along the shore, and it was like the middle of winter, and it was really cold, and it was really sparse. And I just like happened to mention to her that like I was like, "Oh yeah, I always get like a little like bummed out or a little uneasy around like big lakes." And she goes, "What? Why?" And I was like, "Wait, you don't feel that way? You don't feel like kind of like a little uneasy about being like around like a big body of water and like what could happen, or like you never had that thought?" And she's like, "No, never." She's like, "I love the lake. I grew up around the lake. Like this is like such a huge part of like my childhood and like what like I'd loved about growing up." And
I love her shock of like a completely different experience.
Yeah, it was it like bordered on like being offended almost. Like I was kind of trashing on this like idyllic lake that she grew up on. It was really interesting because I was thinking today about like where that might stem from. And I can say that like moments like specifically in my childhood where I can say I felt like acute like fear or like distress like had something to do with water. And like I had never thought about that and I never connected the dots before. But like, yeah, there's like moments in my childhood where I was really, really scared and it had something to do, like water was involved in some way. And that was the first time I thought about that. And I was like kind of blown away that I like was finally able to connect kind of the root of where that came from.
Yeah. So is swimming in a lake or the ocean just like completely out of the question for you, or is that
it's not out of the question, but it is something like that I don't always feel great about. Like swimming in a pool is fine.
Yeah.
Like I've always like swim in pools and the cool of pools, but it's always been something about like big bodies of water and like lakes specifically, where like I just don't like the feeling of like feeling really small in something so big and like not knowing how big it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess not knowing how deep it is can be somewhat concerning, and you know, what's under there, what's swimming there. I mean, I feel like Jaws ruined a lot of people's.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that is, I have like a distinct memory. Like I was really, really young. This might have been like my first memory of like being like afraid of like large bodies of water. And it happened to be a pool because like when I was young, like a pool was like the biggest body of water that I'd been around. And it was at the local YMCA. And the local YMCA had a swim team, and their mascot was the Sharks. And on the wall of this Olympic-sized swimming pool at the YMCA was this massive mural of a great white shark with its mouth open. And I remember going there as a kid and like staring at that and just like internalizing like that's the creature that lives in this like massive body of water, and being like terrified that it's like going to swim out of the depths and like get me.
Oh my gosh, that sounds terrifying. Yeah. Well, Mark, I want to turn to you to, I saw you taking notes. I mean, Carter comes to you. How do you approach?
Well, I would be interviewing him similar to what you did. That's why I started taking notes, so I don't have to be redundant about certain things that he brings up. But you picked up on this as well when you when you mentioned to him that there was two very polar opposite views about being around the water, which from my point of view, and I'd like to share this with Carter because it's something that he could probably identify with and begin to adopt, is that there are different ways of responding to the very same exact stimuli. And if my point of view is, my training has taught me that if any human being can do anything, then any other human being is capable of doing that as well. Because we're all basically fundamentally the same. We have the same building blocks. We're all brought up, to instinctively survive. And our experiences growing up really shape how we view the world. But we think we're locked into how we're brought up and how we're trained to view the world, but we're really not. You know, we're just the product of our training, and the training that we've done has all been haphazard. So unless you focus on an outcome that you want and figure out a regimen to train yourself to get that outcome, everything just fell into place. And some of it worked and some of it didn't work. But the short-term effect has always been to protect you in some way and to make and to allow you to thrive. Even though it's short-term, it's benefiting you in some way. So taking your example of being in the water, we're not made to live in the water. You know, we don't have gills, we can't breathe underwater. You know, we can't even keep up with a fish. You know, we can't swim that well, even if you learn how to swim. The most broken fish will outswim an Olympic swimmer because we're just not, that's not our environment.
Right.
So on a very basic level, is it safer to be out of the water for us as humans? And the answer is absolutely yes, it's safer. But holding on to that, if you hold on to that fear to keep us away from the water, we also eliminate pleasure that you can get being on the water. So if someone, and also there's a safety factor where you should allow yourself to learn, if you're ever going to be around the water, and who knows when you are or aren't, you should learn how to basically keep yourself alive. And that doesn't mean you have to be an Olympic swimmer, but you have to get more comfortable being in the water just for survival abilities, which would be very helpful. And if you have a desire, if you have this girlfriend that, you might develop a long-term relationship with, her love for being on the water might stifle the developments. It just might not work just because of this little thing. And all it really takes for you is, you don't have to love it the way she loves it, but at least, kind of accept it and enjoy it. I mean, to me, the water is very beautiful. However, I still, I can identify with what you're describing, because if I'm in the water, if I get into my head and I start going, what's under there? No, because I grew up on the water in a boat, fishing, going shark fishing, blue fishing, tuna fishing out in the ocean, and I know what's under the water. I've seen it come up on the boat. And so sometimes when I was younger, that would affect me when one day we used to go swimming, fishing, and one day we used to go swimming. So we go out to an area called Zack's Bay and off of Jones Beach, and we take the boat out there and go swimming off the boat. And then on another day on the weekend, we'd go out fishing. And sometimes I would get in my head that what is under the water. Now, part of this is instinctual, because the unknown, and that's what you're talking about, because the water body has to be bigger. It has to be an area that, you know, you can't see in. Like in a pool, you pretty much know it's a confined space. You know, there's nothing living under there that's going to surprise you. It's a fairly controlled environment. A big lake is totally uncontrolled, and very often people who swim in lakes, they get a little bit antsy about the bottom, which is kind of usually muddy, and you know, there's wildlife living in the ocean or in the lakes as well. So that unknown factor comes into play when most people are kind of a little hesitant to be in the dark. You know, when we're in the dark, we lose our sense of vision, and we rely upon our vision to navigate the world. So when you cut off your vision, and you should be able to see, I mean, you know, when you cut off your vision and you go to sleep, it's not a big deal, because, you know, you're going to sleep, you know, you're in a safe environment. But if you walk into a place that's really dark and it has no lights, a little bit of noise, you kind of worry about what is there. So that is a defense mechanism, and it's real. It's helpful. You know, because we should be aware. You know, you could trip over something in the dark. You could bang into things. You know, it adds a level of danger to your environment when you can't see.
It seems like the first thing that you're describing here is to like kind of acknowledge and accept your fear for what it is as like a helpful tool.
Yes, because part of that is helpful, and just accept it and let it go. But there's this thing that we do to ourselves very often, where our mind will think about something that causes fear, and then when our mind thinks about that fear, what happens is hormones are released into your body that'll start to elicit this fight or flight response. It's actually a freeze, fight or flight response. These hormones are really powerful because they're meant to agitate you, meant to get you, you know, riled up for preparing yourself to either run or fight, or hold your breath and just, you know, try to make yourself really small, you know, freeze. But that's the purpose of those hormones. Now, once those hormones are released, it's going to take a little bit of time for them to work their way through your body. And it could take 10, 15 minutes, which is not a big deal. 10 or 15 minutes, you're a little agitated, and then it goes away. But the problem is with people that keep on thinking about that fear over and over again in their mind, they're looping through that fear. It doesn't give the hormone time to dissipate in your body. So you continue to feel that agitation. And that's what most people who have this uncontrolled fear are dealing with. It's that the mind is running wild, and they think they're not in control of their mind, but we actually do have ways of being in control of our mind. And so part of it is working with you to give you different responses. Do it through mental rehearsal. The process of hypnosis is just a process where an operator such as myself, a hypnotist, will help to guide you into a trance state. There are a lot of different ways of going into trance. One of the most common ways of going into trance is through relaxation. It's not the only way. It's not even the most effective way of going into trance or the quickest way, but it's an easy way for a hypnotist working in an office to guide people into trance. Plus, most people, once they really experience very deep relaxation, they love it, because we're
Sounds
agitated
wonderful.
most of the time. It's very different than what we're used to. And all of a sudden they wake up or they come out of trance and they think to themselves, boy, that's different. That feels great. They love, it's the relaxation part that helps them to feel great. The hypnosis part the hypnosis is not relaxation, but relaxation is like the doorway into that hypnotic trance. And when we're in that hypnotic trance, we become more suggestible, meaning that when you're hypnotized, if I suggest to you something, I'm going to tap into your imagination. Right now, your imagination, Carter, is going off on the deep end about what's the worst case scenario. What can scare the shit out of me? That's what I want. I want to be scared so crazily that I won't go in the water. And that's what your mind is looping on, but that's your imagination. So what I would, one of the ways that I'm not working with you, when I work with you, a lot of things happen as things come up. Before I start to work with someone, I have a game plan in mind, like what would I do in these situations? So I'm going to give you examples of what I could do rather than exactly what I would do, because frankly, I don't really know what I'm going to do until I'm doing it. Because I'm getting information from you. Trance opens up the doorway to communication on an energetic level. I mean, it sounds woo-woo. It's really not. It's just we communicate non-verbally all the time. We're broadcasting information, our facial muscles, the hormones, elicit responses in our facial muscles, even our body language. It's all part of our communication. Most of us we might pick up on it, but we're not cognizant of it. We don't really know it as a reliable source of information, but it is something that, you get a sense of how someone is. That's what we're really talking about. You're reading their body language, their facial expressions, the nonverbal cues. So when I'm working with someone, I'm getting nonverbal cues from them, as well as it's hard to even explain this without making it sound woo-woo, because I'm the most analytical type of guy that you could find. So I'm not anti-woo-woo, but there's so much information that we just don't accept as valid, that I've seen it happen over and over again. I can't explain it, but I just accept it. Just open it up to accepting that these are some possibilities that happen. But very often when I'm working with someone, I'll get ideas pop into my mind. Sometimes it's the same idea as the person sitting in the chair is thinking, or I'm working with is thinking. So I always go with whatever comes up, whatever it feels right. And if things don't work, I'll pretty much know it fairly quickly as well, because I might get a response, nonverbal response from the person I'm working with that indicates that was, that's the wrong branch of the road to go off on, and we'll just back it up.
Well, I understand you're not, it's different. We're on Zoom and Carter's not in the room with you, but I guess I'm curious about putting what you're describing in practice, at least a little bit, to give us a sense of what it might look like.
Sure. Well, Zoom actually is a great way of working with people with hypnosis. You don't have to be in the same room as somebody. Frankly, when I work with people in my office, once I interview them and I hypnotize them, their eyes are closed. They could be anywhere in the world. So once I'm working with them on Zoom, once their eyes are closed and they're following my instructions, they could be anywhere. It really doesn't matter. In fact, before there was such a thing as video chats, I'd been doing sessions over the phone with people that weren't able to come into the office.
Oh, so that's good news given the COVID situation.
Absolutely. And this whole topic that you're talking about is very apropos to our situation, because a lot of people are afraid of COVID. And now they've spent the last 7, 8, 9 months training themselves to avoid other people. and they're going to have to become, reintegrated into an open society again, which could be problematic for some people. Because you've trained yourself to avoid everybody, don't get close, run away, put a mask on, all of that. It's valid. I'm not saying anything against it. It's helpful, but somewhere along the line, the doors are going to open up, and people are going to get back to normal living. It might be in the next few months. It might be, in the next few years. But if you look back over to when the Spanish flu was a pandemic, that ended, and people got back into, living their life again.
So much so that we forgot the rules of pandemics. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is very apropos for that, because there are a lot of people that have this, this fear that they're dealing with.
Oh yeah, I've definitely felt that. Like I've had instances like recently where like we would me and my girlfriend, this was several weeks ago, but we went to go see a large group of friends in the park for the first time, and it was like unexpectedly like very anxiety inducing to like have to like do the social thing. I don't know how to describe it, but like to be in that environment again was unexpectedly like uneasy. You're so happy and you're so relieved to see people, but it's also like, oh wow, like I have to like get back into like doing the social dance,
laughing at bad jokes and
right, yeah. Seeming interested, yeah.
Right.
Carter, do you have any times when you also have a fear? You mentioned this. You have this fear of water. Do you have any other times, any other instances when you have that level of fear, or you have a similar fear?
I would say like I have like a fair amount of like social anxiety. But yeah, I think social anxiety is something that I've experienced and can experience, speaking specifically to seeing people again with COVID. But yeah, I would say that's like a similar feeling in a way.
Okay. So sometimes, we learn a response to protect ourselves, and we might start to generalize out. So I always like to point out that our subconscious mind, because that's the way that we describe what I do, is working with the subconscious mind. It's the part of our mind that isn't so readily available. Our conscious mind, if we say, I'm going to go down to the store, that's your conscious mind. And your conscious mind starts to figure out, well, got to get dressed, got to go to the door, got to get outside, got to go down to the store, got to come back. It navigates your world pretty easily. That's all part of the conscious mind. When you say, I got to go down to the store, and all of a sudden you get the feeling inside, things are not so easy going down to the store, that you get a visceral response. That's an emotion that's coming up tied to the analytical conscious mind, but that's other than conscious mind that's making you feel that way. And it's for totally different reason. You got to go to the store to get some food. It has nothing to do with going into the store and getting some food. That feeling is probably associated with something else. And it's some kind of a message. Every emotion that we have is a message from our subconscious, and that message is designed to protect us. So fear is one of the big emotions, obviously. And that emotion means that there's danger. So be careful. Now, if you take it to the point where you think that the fear that is coming up, or the danger is so drastic that you have to stay away, that's an intense fear. Okay. And if it's real, if it's relevant to protect you, then all is good. But if it's overwhelming fear, then it's not good, because it's preventing you from doing something. Like going into the water, if it's just a nice bucolic lake, it's just it's just everything is nice for most people. You might not look at it that way, but for most people, it's just it's a safe environment. They've been in the waters many times. No one's ever gotten hurt. And, it's basically generally accepted as a safe lake to hang out in. If you experience it in your mind without even going into the lake as fearful, then you can pretty much be assured that it's based upon your past experiences somewhere. You picked that up from some past experience because you weren't presented with a fearful situation at that moment with the lake. So it has to be from some past experience. What happens in our past is that we have these unresolved emotional responses. So I have absolutely no idea what happened in your past, and you might not either at this point. And very often it doesn't matter. Okay, it really doesn't matter because your past is your past. You know, we bring our past into the present, and then it causes a problem. So your past is, let's say if you had some experience as a very young child, even an infant, where you had, maybe mom gave you a bath and you got some water in your mouth and you couldn't breathe and you started crying and choking. You know, you were a baby, you don't remember that, but it happened, and now you linked being submerged in a bathtub or being submerged in water with a fearful response. Now, you don't have enough information as a very young child or infant to really deal with that situation. You understood it as life and death. That gets stored somewhere in your psyche, that water is dangerous. And you might have a few more instances where, you know, maybe you were playing around with your buddies and they were dunking, you know, you were dunking each other, you know, and you were people were making you hold your breath and whatever it was. Those were uncomfortable experiences, and they were intensified because you had this other thing stored from the past. So now all of these instances, these fear of water, keep going in the same little cubby hole, stored right there. And now, oops.
Oh.
Maybe he has to call back.
Yeah. Let me end this and I'll send a new one out.
Okay.
Hold that thought.